Would it take him pulling the trigger? Is that what would do it? And then you would say he needs to get out of the race? Abigail, you have nothing to say? Abigail, what if he said it about your your 3 children? Is that when you would say he should get out of the race, Abigail? You're running to be governor.
Miss Earle-Sears.
I mean, we're talking about murder. We're talking about someone's life being taken from them. Have you nothing to say about that? Are you not going to address it? Really, you can't go any further. You're a governor. You're supposed to stand up for all the people. Are you saying political murder is all right? Have some political courage. What you have done is you are taking political calculations about your future as governor. Well, as governor, you have to make hard choices, and that means telling Jay Jones to leave the race.
Okay, so a little unneeded backstory on this video. I'm sure most of you guys don't care. But we were supposed to cover this yesterday, and then my power went out, which was really fun. But then when it came back on, it destroyed all the settings on my computer, so we recorded this entire thing, and it had no audio. It was muted the entire time. So I am personally convinced at this point that there is a coordinated Democrat sabotage campaign against this story, okay? Gavin Newsom is colluding with Abigail Spanberger to send a bunch of tiny Democrat gremlins to my house and cut all the power lines so that they do not see us covering her atrocious performance in the governor's debate, or more importantly, the greater and wider trend of Democrat violence in this country. That's what I'm telling myself to aid some of this frustration, because it has been a grueling process. But nonetheless, for the 3rd time, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to try to talk about this today, because I think it is becoming increasingly clear that whether it is Democrat politicians like J.B. Pritzker still vocally supporting the anti-ICE protests, despite the fact that they know what is going on in the streets and it doesn't exactly look like protest, or the Portland City Council, who's taking that one step further and openly sponsoring, aiding, and assisting the domestic terrorism in their streets, or the now infamous Virginia Attorney General's race, where the Democrat nominee Jay Jones is apparently allowed, as we've covered by the way, to openly fantasize about the murdering of Republicans and their children, and yet still will not receive a single condemnation from any elected Democrat in the United States. It is increasingly clear it is no longer just appropriate to call this left-wing violence. It is directly Democrat violence, right? The Democrat Party and their politicians own everything that is happening, and deep down they know that. Because as I've been trying to tell you, essentially ever since the Charlie Kirk assassination, a lot of Democrats may go out and make these vague statements condemning political violence, but notice how they'll never condemn or even talk about or acknowledge the people who are committing it on the left. And that is for a very particular reason. Because while the Democrats, much like Abigail Spanberger is trying to do, may whitewash the image of their own party to be these moderate, sensible, neoliberal, pro-democracy political actors, in reality, they know deep down they're not much different from the violent, revolutionary communist left who is rioting in the streets. As a matter of fact, I think both entities understand there's a mutual use for one another, right? The Democrats do represent Antifa, but it's a more sensible and palatable image to sell to the American people. And meanwhile, Democrats know ultimately the Antifa types are working for them. And so why would you ever want to condemn that relationship? What would be the necessity, frankly, for a Democrat to actually condemn Jay Jones, like in a sincere sense, not just, oh, he shouldn't have said that, or call for him to drop out of the race, when clearly this is exactly what the Democrat Party stands for? Well, in today's video, I want to bring you this story, because on Thursday night, once again, the Virginia Democrat nominee for governor in the 2025 election, Abigail Spanberger, was grilled by Winsome Sears and the moderator on this very question. Will you condemn Jay Jones? Like, do you think it's a problem that the person representing your party in the 3rd most powerful seat, kind of running for the state government right now, is like a crazy, violent, insane person? What do you think her answer is, ladies and gentlemen? Well, we'll tell you about it here today. First, though, do us a favor. If you enjoy our content, make sure you hit that like button down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. That is the best way to support our work and ensure that we can keep doing these videos. And that said, I mean, let us just get straight into this before Gavin Newsom tries to sabotage the video again. Just take a listen here as to what happens when the Democrat nominee for governor is asked directly, will you condemn the individual who is clearly a violent, insane lunatic? And needless to say, I think you already know the answer, but check it out.
Thank you, Ms. Spanberger. I didn't hear an answer there on the endorsement issue, so I want to just make sure. Will you continue to endorse Jay Jones to be the next Attorney General of Virginia? And were you aware of these text messages before they released? You have 30 seconds.
In fact, it appears that it was those who released the text messages and held them for years. So the public was unaware who had knowledge of these text messages for many years.
What did you do about it?
I learned of these text messages the day that they came out, and I denounced them as soon as I learned of them.
She denounces murder.
And importantly, at this point, as we move forward, the voters now have this information that was withheld for them.
You're running to
presumably for
Ms.
political
Earle-Sears,
reasons. But the voters now have the information, and it is up to voters to make an individual choice based on this information.
Ms. Spanberger, I understand what you're saying about the voters, but for you yourself, do you still continue to endorse Jay Jones? 15 seconds, yes or no?
We are all running our individual races. I believe my opponent has said that about her lieutenant governor nominee.
Ms. Earle-Sears,
and it's up to every person to make their own decision. I am running my race to serve Virginia, and that is what I intend to do.
Thank you, Ms. Spanberger. We just want to clarify, what you're saying is that as of now, you still endorse Jay Jones as Attorney General.
I'm saying as of now, it's up to every voter to make their own individual decision. I am running for governor. I am accountable for the words that I say, for the acts that I take, for the policies that I have put out.
Thank you.
I am responsible for the policies I put out and the work I will endeavor to do tirelessly for the people of Virginia.
Thank you, Ms. Spanberger.
Yeah, well, that basically sums up how the entire governor debate went for Abigail Spanberger, which was not great. But I do want you to notice how Democrats are playing the same exact dialectic game that I've been trying to warn people about for about a month, which is the whole thing of, we denounce violence vaguely, but we don't denounce the person. She said the same thing. She said she denounces the text messages. Okay, fine. That sounds good, I guess. But she won't denounce the person. When asked simply, do you still endorse Jay Jones? She just gives the cop-out answer of, well, everyone is running their own individual race after all. Except that doesn't really hold true when you, if I'm not mistaken, endorsed and campaigned with Jay Jones in the past. You're running as part of the same party on the same ticket, and now you want to pretend like you don't know this guy and you have nothing to do with him? That's utterly ridiculous. But of course, I think it sums up a trend you very often see by the Democrat Party. This is essentially, actually, if you really think about it, the Democrat campaign strategy since at least the Obama administration, which is let's run some sensible, moderate-looking person at the top of the ticket, but everyone knows they're a Trojan horse for the radical left who's going to be staffing and running the entire administration. I'd argue, for instance, that's what Obama was, right? 2008, he runs a super feel-good, unifying, moderate campaign. He started off with like a 90% approval rating. A lot of Americans, even Republicans, had sincere hope he might unite the country. And by his second term, who was in charge, right? The radicals, the SJWs. And then the country basically went woke ever since. We know the story there. Same is true, for instance, I would argue with my home state and Gavin Newsom, where in 2018, he ran on saying things like he was going to fix homelessness, affordability, all this stuff, obviously gets in power, hands total control to the progressives, and then we know what San Francisco and LA look like, or even Joe Biden, who his entire life, you go back to his videos of the 1990s, was actually a pretty moderate Democrat. There are old Joe Biden speeches where I'm like, I actually agree with this guy. But of course, by 2020, when he got into the White House, immediately just staffed the entire administration with who? The far left, crazy, radical lunatics. Same exact story is happening here, right? It's a Trojan horse for the radical left, where Spanberger is going to run as being the super sensible person. Who's at the bottom of the ticket, though? Like, who's going to be at the other positions in the state government? I think you know the answer. And I hope and pray that Americans by now are smart to this game. But I think the other explanation we have to be prepared to entertain is that everyone knows this and they simply do not care, which is to say what? I think it is genuinely shocking, for instance, that Democrats do not choose to condemn Jay Jones, but at the same time, let's not forget this fact. They are doing so because they genuinely believe it is more politically advantageous for them to double down and stand by Jay Jones in this election than it is to disavow him entirely. And why is that? Because the truth is many Democrat voters, if not the vast majority of them, feel the exact same way as Jay Jones. And I hate to say that, because I would like to have this more feel-good style of rhetoric that we've heard from a lot of people in the past several years, that, you know, the real problem in this country is not people, it's just the establishment, it's just the politicians in power. They're corrupt. The American people are really secretly united. But I'm sorry, when we talk about recent polls showing that 50% of liberal voters would support political assassination, and that translating, by the way, to the very real reaction you saw online in the wake of the Charlie Kirk assassination to this very situation itself, no, the reality is that a lot of Democrat voters do feel this way. And part of the reason Democrats are not disavowing Jay Jones is because they sincerely believe the Jay Jones scandal, quote unquote, will be something to energize and excite a bunch of Democrat voters. And I think they're doubly scared that if they disavow Jay Jones, that's actually going to anger the liberal voter base and maybe cause them to not be energized, not turn out, maybe stage a boycott of any Democrat candidate who doesn't stand by Jay Jones. They're going to say, oh, you're a coward, right? And that is the political calculus, frankly, that the Virginia Democrats are making. Now, I think November, especially in regards to the race itself, the Attorney General's race itself, is going to be a really interesting referendum on where this country stands with political violence. But I have to say, if Jay Jones does end up winning that race, it's going to be, a scary moment at least, right? I don't know what to do about it. I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying that's going to be the full confirmation, if you ever needed it, that no, it's going to be very hard, I will say, to share a pluralistic democratic society when 50% wants to kill the other 50%. Like, needless to say, democracy, quote unquote, does not exactly thrive in that situation. And if you still don't believe what I'm saying, I'd further like to point out recent scandals that have broken out in the Spanberger campaign even before the Jay Jones situation. Whereas one example, this campaign staffer, Jasmine Fry, was found to be online, while, by the way, she's publicly working for Spanberger, so this is not like some old comment, celebrating the assassination, obviously, of Charlie Kirk. This is what she had to say, quote, "F around and find out. His entire brand was hate and violence. You attract what you preach. His last words were gang violence, trying to pen stuff on black people. Save your breath for the kiddos killed in Colorado yesterday." So again, she can run at the top of the ticket as this moderate face, but when this is who is working for her, who do you think is going to be guiding policy? Who do you think is going to be advising her, right? It's all very clear to me. That said, I want you to take a listen to Winsome Sears' response in this debate, and it is very straightforward, yes. If fantasizing about murdering a dad and his two boys is not enough for Abigail to drop her endorsement of Jay Jones, what is? Good question to ask the Democrat Party.
I'm wondering why my opponent won't say beyond its abhorrent and disgusting, why she won't say it is not okay and that he must leave the race because Jay Jones advocated the murder, Abigail, the murder of a man, a former speaker, as well as his children who were 2 and 5 years old. You have little girls. What would it take him pulling the trigger? Is that what would do it? And then you would say he needs to get out of the race? Abigail, you have nothing to say? Abigail, what if he said it about your your 3 children? Is that when you would say he should get out of the race, Abigail? You're running to be governor. I don't understand why you just can't come forward and say he needs to go. I mean, we're talking about murder. We're talking about someone's life being taken from them. Have you nothing to say about that? Are you not going to address it? Really, you can't go any further. You're a governor. You're supposed to stand up for all the people. Are you saying political murder is all right?
You know, God forbid, if this country does devolve into something very extreme, which I do not want to happen, but if it does, that image will go down in the history books, right? When we study why did it happen, what caused this, that's going to be a very important catalyst, a symbol of it, if you will. That as a Republican stood there on that stage and repeatedly asked the Democrat to condemn violence and violent people, she stood there in silence. like a rock, like she was frozen inside a glacier or something like that. That's it right there. That's basically America right now in terms of Democrat Party as an institution versus Republican Party as an institution. And, you know, at the very best, the best justification you can make is she's that terrified of the radical left. She's that much of a coward, she won't say anything, which I don't believe is very redeemable of a characteristic, but even then. However, at the very worst, what does it really mean? She endorses it. She supports it. She's fully in line with Jay Jones. And it has not been a good 48 hours for Abigail Spanberger. That's why she desperately tried to put out this statement after refusing to condemn political violence on that stage, saying, quote, "I unequivocally condemn political violence of any form. It's not who we are as Virginians. As governor, I will bring people together to get things done on the issues that unite us instead of stoking division between our fellow Virginians." Which may sound kind of nice, but again, notice the vagueness. Where's the comment about Jay Jones? Nowhere in there is a withdrawal of the endorsement. And that's again because why? Democrats are making a political calculus that they're more likely to win supporting violence than disavowing violence. Okay? That's how it goes. And the mainstream media, by the way, very guilty of similar things. It's worth noting too, again, they just intend to keep running on this whole situation being as it is and keeping this candidate. And that stations like ABC, CBS, PBS have all spent exactly 0 seconds talking about this scandal itself. NBC mentioned it once, only for 63 seconds. And yes, indeed, this is a mainstream Democrat running for a major elected state office. But I would argue it does sum up, as I've been saying, this trend of the Democrat Party, and I guess you could add the mainstream media to that, which is they are fully aware left-wing violence is happening, but they just pretend like it doesn't exist, right? While endorsing it at the same time. So take a listen.
Substantial race in an off-year election, 63 seconds coverage on NBC, nothing on the other two big networks, nothing on PBS. It's like this never happened.
Well, that is not surprising in any way because most of the corporate media view their job as existing to help out the Democrat Party with their campaigns. And so it happens on literally every issue, whether it's an actual race and a candidate that they're trying to help out. We know that if this were a Republican candidate, it would be leading every single news show, and every Republican official in America would be forced to ask about it. We now have a situation in the Democrat Party where there's open support for left-wing violence, and nobody's really getting asked hard questions.
Yeah, well, if you needed any more incentive, if you live in Virginia, to go out and vote, make sure you go vote. Final reminder, okay? Because this is going to be basically the country's referendum on, is left-wing violence acceptable or is it not? Now, we do have some good news, is that at least in the betting markets, which initially, even after the Jay Jones scandal, still had the Democrats winning this race, that the odds have now flipped. Currently, the incumbent Republican, Jason Miyares, who given current circumstances we fully endorse, is now at a 64% chance to win. He is surged by 10% odds there. Democrat Party, Jay Jones, now at 44% over on Kalshi. So, you know, okay, maybe that's good news. But still, ultimately, what is it basically saying? It's a 60-40 race, right? It's still fairly competitive, given the fact you have a violent lunatic running and representing, again, who here? Democrat voters, because that ultimately is the party. And by the way, on the front of Abigail Spanberger, you will notice that this Jay Jones problem is not isolated, because in many different cases, as she pretends to be this moderate, sensible person, on radical left issues, she refuses to really give a straightforward answer or condemn it. And the same, by the way, completely true of this question of whether men should be allowed to change in the same locker rooms as girls. That was also brought up in the governor debate. So again, I hope you realize what is going on here and who this person really is and who all of these Democrat politicians really are. But if you needed one more example, take a listen to this moment from the governor debate as well.
Again, the question was, should transgender girls who are biological males be allowed to use girls' bathrooms and play on girls' sports teams in K through 12? You have 15 seconds to clarify.
In cases across Virginia, I think it's incumbent upon parents and educators and administrators in each local community to make decisions locally.
That's what this is about.
Ms. Earle-Sears?
There should never be
We're gonna get
nude
to you in a
men
moment.
Oh
in
my
locker
goodness,
rooms.
we finally have her saying that, but you voted for that.
Ms.
Have you
Earle-Sears.
finally
My opponent-
Ms.
said
Earle-Sears,
that
you were
now?
just
lying.
intruding on
Are we in
time here.
agreement now? Are you
Ms.
going to
Earle-Sears,
tell?
this is Ms. Spanberger's time. I have a follow-up question for Ms. Spanberger. Would you rescind the Youngkin administration policy requiring boys and girls to use bathrooms aligning with their biological sex? You have 30 seconds.
My priority would be to ensure that local communities, importantly parents and teachers
That's
and
a yes or
educators,
no.
are able to work together to meet the unique needs of each school and each community.
girls
And
need
that is
privacy.
important. And I say that as a mother of 3 daughters in Virginia public schools.
Exactly.
And as someone who used to investigate crimes against children. The way that we keep our children safe is by ensuring they are safe in schools, which includes funding law enforcement and public safety.
But Ms. Spanberger, the question was, would you rescind the Youngkin administration policy requiring boys and girls to use bathrooms aligning with their biological sex? You have 15 seconds to clarify that question.
Yes.
And my answer is that in each local community, decisions should be made between parents and educators and teachers in each community. It shouldn't be
Parents don't want
dictated
their
by
girl children.
politicians.
Yeah, well, are you starting to notice a pattern here? I hope you are. Because we all know that's an 80-20 issue in America. And yet, much like other Democrats, she is so scared of the 20%, or shoot, just controlled or supports the 20%. I don't know. You can speculate which the truth on that is. That she's fully willing to go out and basically scream to the world, yes, indeed, I am a radical. So I'm always of the belief that when Democrat politicians say things, you should believe them, right? So when they say that they support Antifa and Antifa are the World War II veterans and all that garbage, like you should believe that. Okay, so they do indeed support and endorse violent communist revolution on our streets, which is exactly what the history of anti-fascist action is, right? Or when they say, we support men in the women's locker rooms, you should believe that they support men in the women's locker rooms. And when they say they refuse to endorse violent people, you should believe them. I don't know what else to tell you, right? Am I supposed to just misinterpret the Democrats, right? Some liberal pundit's going to come and try to tell us that, no, actually, that's not what we believe. You're misrepresenting. Republicans are spreading misinformation and propaganda. No. We're just reacting to your party, ladies and gentlemen. But anyways, that said, guys, let me know your thoughts on all of this in the comment section down below. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you are new. Go vote. God bless and peace.